Tonight, the House Select Committee on China will hold its first hearing on the overall threat China poses to the U.S. It comes at a time when tensions are high between the two nations over myriad issues: Taiwan, the war in Ukraine, also concerns over the use of the Chinese social media platform TikTok. I'm joined now by Democratic Representative Jake Auchincloss. He's a member of that committee. Congressman, good morning. Thanks for joining.
Good to be with you.
This is a bipartisan committee, Democrats and Republicans. I wonder, in the work you're doing, again, this is the first time you're having a hearing, are Republicans and Democrats relatively united on challenging China?
Early indications are yes. This committee represents a generational opportunity to rise above day in, day out politics and chart a course for sound strategy. This strategy is predicated on values. The Chinese Communist Party does not recognize the inherent value of individuals. They think people are pawns of the state, whereas the United States was founded on self-evident truths. We believe in the inherent dignity and value of every human being, and we need to defend and help promote those human and civil rights, not just here at home, but overseas as well.
Taiwan, of course, at the center of concerns in the relationship. You just returned from a trip to Taiwan. The CIA director said this weekend that China has told its military to be prepared, at least, haven't made a decision, be prepared to invade Taiwan by 2027. When you speak to the Taiwanese leaders, do they share that view that an invasion could be imminent?
They certainly take seriously the threat of an amphibious invasion, and they want foreign military sales, particularly from the United States, to help them prepare and deter that invasion, and they want officer-to-officer professional military education and training. I do think, though, that the more viable near-term threat from the mainland would be a 1-2 punch of energy asphyxiation plus disinformation. What I mean by that is that Taiwan only has 2 to 3 weeks of energy reserves on the island. The Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy could blockade their ports, prevent them from importing LNG, and simultaneously pump disinformation onto the island about who's to blame and try to engineer, really, a coup from the outside in. That, to me, is a significant threat that we need to help the Taiwanese prepare for.
As you know, President Biden has indicated at times that the U.S. would come to Taiwan's defense if China were to take the decision to invade militarily. That's been walked back to some degree by some of his advisors. Do you know what the U.S. policy is? If China were to invade, would the U.S. send forces to defend Taiwan?
The President of the United States gets to speak to U.S. foreign policy and national security decisions. We have one voice overseas. What I will say is that we need to be working with our Taiwanese partners to equip their military, to ensure that they have energy independence, and to help them counter Chinese disinformation and influence campaigns, which are pervasive and malicious. All of these things will change the cost-benefit analysis for Xi Jinping as he considers whether or not to try to force reunification.
Other cost-benefit analysis underway right now is on China's decision whether or not to supply weapons to Ukraine. U.S. intelligence is that they are considering this. You've heard U.S. officials talk about penalties to China, primarily economic penalties. What should those penalties be exactly if China were to join the war, in effect, by arming Russian forces there?
That needs to be determined with consultations between Congress, Treasury, State, and the White House. But there does need to be accountability. The Chinese would be aiding and abetting war crimes where they send weapons to Russia, and they would be more deeply exacerbating the rift that already exists between democracies and this new axis of China, Russia, and Iran. So China needs to put itself on the right side of history with this war in Ukraine.
China lab leak, as you know, the Department of Energy shifted its assessment as to whether it leaked from COVID-19, leaked from a lab. It's a low confidence assessment, but they have shifted it in that direction. What's happening here? And if it is established that it is China, what should the U.S. do, in effect, in response to that?
The intelligence community is divided about the origins of COVID, and there's healthy disagreement and debate within them. I think regardless, though, of the precise origin, here's what we do know. We know that early on, the Chinese Communist Party refused to share timely and salient information about the origins and spread of the virus, when that information could have helped other nations prepare their own biodefenses. And then later on, when the Chinese were facing waves of COVID after unleashing or lifting up their zero COVID policy, they also failed to upload new variants to the International Genetic Database. They have been less compliant with basic World Health Organization norms than even Russia or Iran. They have been a bad actor in terms of global public health, and it's really an unacceptable situation for a nation of 1.4 billion people.
Final question, TikTok. This is an issue that your committee is going to be dealing with. There's talk of banning it from not just federal devices, but other agencies, et cetera. For folks at home who either have it on their phones themselves or their kids use it, God knows there are millions of Americans who do so, would you recommend them to delete that app because it being a threat to their privacy, to their personal information, a security threat?
I've got 2 little kids at home, and my view on TikTok and every other social media platform is that there should be an enforceable and verifiable age limit at least of 16 years old, because what TikTok and frankly other social media platforms are doing is they are monetizing children's attention spans with no regard to their socio-emotional or cognitive development. They are really abusing the access that they have to young children's time, and open season is over, and Congress needs to hold them all to account, TikTok included.
But it sounds like you're just grouping it with the general threat from other social media apps, that it's a time suck in effect. But is it a national security issue is my question. Is it a personal security issue?
I don't have TikTok on my phone. I think there's strong evidence that TikTok is working with the CCP and sharing that data. But I'm actually more concerned about the effects that all social media platforms have on children's well-being. It's not just a time suck. It's actually affecting their mental health and their cognitive development.
Yeah, a lot of data. We've covered that on this show as well. Well, Congressman Jake Auchincloss, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Good.